Canelo Alvarez may get stripped of his IBF title if he does not face Sergey Derevyanchenko. And from the sounds of it, Derevyanchenko's camp ain't even heard from Canelo's side. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Patreon family, Venmo, Cash App, you know what it is. Let's jump right into it. The IBF has ordered a purse bid, and I'm going to read it for you. They ordered a purse bid for Mr. Canelo Alvarez, who is a unified champion, just fought Danny Jacobs. It says the IBF has ordered a purse bid for the mandatory defense of the middleweight title between champion Saul Canelo Alvarez and #1 rated contender Sergey Derevyanchenko. Alvarez was ordered to negotiate with Derevyanchenko on May 15th. The IBF has received a written certification from Alex Dumbrov on behalf of Derevyanchenko, indicating that they were no longer willing to participate in negotiations and requested an immediate purse bid pursuant to IBF Rule 10A. The purse bid for this bout will take place Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019 at noon. This is trouble for Canelo, Some people, if you're new to boxing, you might not understand like the jargon. So I'm going to tell you in layman's terms how this works. Purse bid is basically like an auction where different parties can buy the rights to the fight and they have to put the fight on by a certain date. Canelo, as a champion, per the rules, he has to defend against a mandatory. He can, however, request an exemption, and he would have to supply a reason as to why he cannot fight his mandatory. So let's say he's injured. This is what happened with Kell Brook. Kell Brook was ordered with the IBF to fight, and the IBF is, pretty stringent and pretty strict. He was ordered to fight his then mandatory Errol Spence Jr. He just came off the Golovkin fight where he suffered an orbital eye injury. So his team sent out the petition and requested an exemption, a medical exemption, because he couldn't fight Errol Spence within a certain time or negotiate because his eye was recovering as he had eye surgery. So Canelo has already passed that opportunity and that free window to either negotiate or tell the IBF why he is unable as a champion to fight his mandatory that he's supposed to fight. So now it's going to purse bid. That's what that means. So it's going to the auction style. So Mike Coppinger, he's a reporter. He says the IBF ordered the purse bid increases the likelihood we'll see Triple G against Derevyanchenko this fall for the vacant title, assuming Canelo passes on the fight with Sergey, right? He also says Sergey Derevyanchenko's advisor, Kevin Connolly, tells me that he hasn't heard from Canelo's side. Quote, Sergey is excited by the prospect of fighting Triple G for the vacant title. And if it ends up being another opponent, Sergey will look to unify with Jermall Charlo next year on a PBC platform, right? A purse bid was ordered earlier today, but it's widely expected that Canelo will relinquish the IBF title, which would set up Triple G versus Derevyanchenko for the vacant title. Sergey, like Charlo, is a PBC fighter. Derevyanchenko is promoted by Lou DiBella. So I did a live stream and kind of went over a lot of this stuff. You could check that, but I'm going to give a more condensed version. This is bad news for Canelo Alvarez. Here's why. Because one, he was supposed to fight Jermall Charlo. You're a champion. No matter if you're A side, if you're popular, you have responsibilities as a champion. His WBC mandatory was Jermall Charlo. He'd been doing everything, trying to get ranked. He'd been calling out Canelo and Triple G when he had the belts, and neither one of them fought him. So they basically made up some kind of position so Canelo didn't have no mandatory and made him some kind of franchise champion to get Jermall Charlo off of Canelo's back. That just happened when the week of Charlo's fight. They conveniently announced it. Now, Canelo's other belt that he just got in May, Cinco de Mayo weekend, fighting Danny Jacobs, he's going to have to either A, fight the guy that Danny Jacobs fought, the ranked guy, Sergey Derevyanchenko. That's who Jacobs fought and was in a tough fight, knocked him down once. And then, he was game, Derevyanchenko. That's how Jacobs even became champion again, to fight and get the Canelo fight. So that's who the IBF is telling Canelo he needs to fight. The bad side is, I don't know where DAZN's head is. I don't know if they even care about belts and stuff, or they're looking at Canelo like a cash cow. He just needs to produce big fights. Sergey Derevyanchenko versus Canelo, I'm not going to say it's the biggest fight, but this is, as a champion, what he's being requested to do. So, as Mike Coppinger said, it's expected that Canelo is going to get rid of his belt, meaning he's not going to fight Derevyanchenko. That's a bad look. This puts him in the same boat as Gennady Golovkin. Gennady Golovkin was supposed to fight Canelo last year. Canelo failed a drug test, and Gennady Golovkin was told by the IBF, hey, we were going to step aside for Canelo Triple G2, but Canelo failed a drug test and messed that up. He's suspended. Seeing how you want to keep fighting on May, Cinco de Mayo weekend, you got to fight your mandatory, Sergey Derevyanchenko. Golovkin was like, no, this is not our fault. We don't want to fight Derevyanchenko. We want to fight Vanes Martirosyan, who's a 154-pounder, who was coming off of a loss to Erislandy Lara, who switched management from Al Heyman and went to Don King, who hadn't fought in 2.5 years, right? And that's what Golovkin elected to do. He'd rather, he didn't want to spoil his potential Canelo payday when Canelo would free up from being suspended. So as a result, Golovkin chose to cherry pick and fight Vanes Martirosyan, and it ended in 2 rounds because Vanes Martirosyan, being on that long of a layoff and only having like 1 fight in 2 years, before so he had a 2-year layoff, but before that he only fought 1 time that year, and it was to Erislandy Lara where he lost. So he wasn't even active before his inactivity, if that makes sense. And Golovkin, he didn't want to fight Derevyanchenko, who was then undefeated, and Jacobs later did. You see how this works? See, so like black fighters, they just have to fight whoever to, Jacobs, to become relevant enough for Canelo, he had to fight 4 undefeated fighters in a row, including Golovkin and including Derevyanchenko. But for Golovkin, he's able to fight Steve Rolls. He's able to swerve Derevyanchenko. And apparently Canelo might do the same. So, it's a bad look. There's a lot of pressure on Canelo, a lot of pressure on Gennady Golovkin. I don't really care who says what, new media. It's just, it is what it is. Because Canelo and DAZN, I don't know if they even want this fight for whatever reason. Canelo's probably looking at it like this is a dangerous fight and it's not going to be a big fight. Why should I do it? I'm Canelo. I'd rather just get rid of the belts, which is his decision. But the bad side for Canelo, why it looks bad, is this goes against everything that he said he was about and wanted to accomplish this year. He said he wanted to become the first Mexican middleweight unified undisputed champion this year. So letting the WBC basically strip you for your avoidance of Jamal Charlo and letting them strip you again, another sanctioning body, the IBF, in a matter of 1 or 2 months with the IBF, or relinquishing your belt, which is, basically the same, not complying, that's going to be a bad look because that's 2 belts. You said you want to become undisputed. So you need to get the 4 major belts, and then you had 2 and basically had to get 2 subtracted. So you're going in the opposite direction of what you said you want to do. Now, this creates more turmoil for DAZN because if Canelo chooses to relinquish the belt, fight Kovalev, fight somebody else other than Derevyanchenko, he's already passed his opportunity to try to request an exemption. So it looks like he has to either A, fight Derevyanchenko, or B, get rid of that belt, or C, not get rid of the belt, and then the IBF follows their rules and then they strip him of the belt, which obviously would look worse. So the walls are closing in for this whole DAZN situation, and the Canelo and Triple G, they're waiting and wasting time. Canelo's supposed to fight on the Mexican dates, quote unquote. These are the dates we've all known he said he wanted to fight, and September 14th will be here in 8.5 weeks, and we don't even know who Canelo's fighting at this point. And you got all this stuff in the background. They're throwing around different names, and it's just, Canelo did a good thing unifying with Jacobs, but what does it all matter if his very next fight within a few months he's getting stripped or relinquished of the belt he just won versus Jacobs, and working in reverse, to what he said he wanted to do, which was to become undisputed at middleweight, So he's just making it. If you already had all the belts except for Demetrius Andrade's belt, then you should have just fought Demetrius Andrade, So it looks like he doesn't want to fight Charlo. Or doesn't want to fight Andrade. And the crazy thing is, if you were going to fight Andrade, then they didn't even have to create a franchise title. You could have justified fighting in a unification for undisputed against Andrade, and then Charlo would have had to wait, because a unification for undisputed especially would trump any type of mandatory situation. So it's like they kind of played their cards the wrong way, and this creates a ripple in the pond. It's all dependent on what Canelo does next. But let's say Canelo does vacate the belt or get stripped of the belt, the IBF belt now. Golovkin, right? He's the next man in line. He's the next person in line to fight for the belt. So he's going to have yet again a second opportunity to fight for a title. So if he doesn't take the fight with Derevyanchenko, this will be the second time he's swerved the same person, and he's going to have to fight whoever he is going to fight, and he's going to justify fighting that person with no belt, most likely, unless he fights Canelo. But there's even issues with that. If he fights Canelo, let's say he fights Canelo in a trilogy fight. I told you this is all messed up. They could have just easily listened to what I've been saying on my channel. Here's why. If Canelo and Triple G wanted to fight for September, one, they're cutting it close. There's only 8.5 weeks before that date, and we have no promotion, no press tour, no official announcement. Two, Canelo, if he fights Golovkin, is likely going to get stripped or have to get rid of the IBF belt. So it's Canelo's not going to have the WBC belt or the IBF. So the first two Canelo Triple G fights, they had all the belts except for the WBO belt in the first fight. The second fight, they had all the belts except for the WBO and the IBF, because Golovkin got stripped because he didn't fight Derevyanchenko. So now, if Canelo and Triple G fight in September, they're not going to have the WBC like they had in the first fight, and they're not going to have the IBF like they had in the first fight, but didn't have in the second fight. So how big of a fight is that? Especially with Triple G coming off of a Steve Rolls performance. This is a nightmare. It's becoming a clusterfuck, and some bad decisions and bad moves, I feel, in terms of the perception and the persona wise, because right now, like I said, they're cutting it close. If Triple G doesn't fight Derevyanchenko yet again, then that's going to look horrible, especially if he opts to fight like a Jaime Munguia. Let's say Canelo doesn't want to fight him. I'm just looking at all the different options that have been rumored. If Triple G chooses to fight Jaime Munguia, but he doesn't want to fight for his old belt, so you'd rather pull up another guy from 154 and the lower division than fight for your old title? Like that, that's not a good look for boxing, in my honest, humble opinion. It really isn't. How is that a good look when Triple G's a former champion, and if Canelo passes on the Derevyanchenko fight, he has the opportunity to fight for a title, and a 37-year-old Golovkin, if he passes on that shot with Derevyanchenko to fight somebody who doesn't have a belt, like, not Canelo or Andrade, then that's going to look bad if he fights Jaime Munguia. So I can't wait. New media. I cannot wait to see how this all plans out. But obviously Canelo's decision is going to impact the rest of the division, and I think Charlo and Andrade, they're unfortunately left behind in this situation because they're so good and dangerous and a threat. People are making excuses for them not to get a shot at the other popular guys that would move the needle on their careers and be certified wins if they can, that would solidify them if they could beat Canelo or Triple G. But, they have to be given and afforded that opportunity, and it's going to take pressure from the fans. Andrade took to his social media and started clowning Canelo. He's calling him out again. He's been doing it since 154, and he's like, where are your cojones? Like, what are you doing? Boxing is not supposed to be about, it's still a competition. It's still a sport at the end of the day. How would you like it if the NBA, no matter if you're like, I like the Warriors, you know what I'm saying? I like the Lakers too, really, because of Kobe. But I wanted to see the Bucks or Toronto, the Raptors, play the Warriors, because it's the two best teams, and the Raptors got through it, and then they fought they played against the Warriors. you know, but only in boxing is like this strategic bullshit where they're trying to manifest and make these other fights instead of just, you know, sticking to the script. So can't wait to see what Canelo decides. I will update you on this, but it's not really looking good because, you know, he's really, I don't know if DAZN wants Canelo versus Derevyanchenko. It looks like they might be just in it for like kind of the big fights and what they think will gain subscribers. I don't know how well Derevyanchenko and Canelo will sell. So if you think about it, Canelo versus Danny Jacobs only did 600,000, you know, so less than 1 million. Derevyanchenko already lost to Jacobs, so I can't imagine that and he hasn't, you know, he had a cool fight with Jack Kukale since, but he hasn't become a household name or anything overnight. So I can't imagine that fight will do better. So I would imagine Canelo's probably going to get rid of the belt. Let me know what you guys think. You know, crazy decision making instead of sticking to the script. This all could have been resolved. Golovkin should have fought Derevyanchenko last year, you know, for that belt. And then he would have never been stripped. And, you know, that created a chain of events that made Jacobs a champion because he was the one willing to fight Derevyanchenko. You know, it's just been a string of things. But let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We working.